Hello, viewers and listeners. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Creative Constitution podcast with the wonderful Deborah Tamai and myself, Jazz Sebastian. We're really happy to be back. What is the topic? What's the topic for today?
So often as creators, we are always doubting whether we should spend the money or to save the money. So this episode is really all about going deep into what we should do as creators and whether sometimes it's worth it to bite the bullet and spend that cash, or whether sometimes it's better to learn those skills yourself.
And of course, it is a difficult decision because as creators, as struggling, starving artists, I think so many artists do that. They label themselves that because it is such a frequent situation within the creative community. A lot of us do have that creative brain on hyperdrive, and a lot of people that are living in that sort of reality, they aren't the most business-minded people. Usually, I find anyhow. You've broken the mold there. I know that for sure. But so it's a difficult struggle because creative people, may not have a lot of money.
That's correct.
Because they're creative minded. They're not business minded. They're not money making minded. They're all focused on the art and the expression and the magic of it all.
That's very true. I think there's a really fine line when you start out and you don't really have a lot of skills in specific areas as to what you want to spend your time on. And I found that personally very true because coming out from that law/business background, as you kind of touched upon there, I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I knew that whatever outlet I chose, I would have to dedicate either time or money, sometimes both, to learn that craft or that skill. And the more I kind of got into it, the more evident it became that, one, you either were to spend hundreds of hours learning something on YouTube, or you could spend the money to advance several levels. And sometimes as a creative, it can be really hard to make those decisions. Just because if you don't have a lot of money in your pocket, then you end up spending a lot of time going deep into a topic or trying to learn as many skills as possible. But then you realize that you kind of become a jack of all trades, master of none. But is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? So that's really what this episode is all about.
Yeah.
So with yourself, we know that as a musician, you're on your path. Take us back 2-3 years ago when you were first working on all of your creations, your music, your songs. What was your process back then? Did you spend a lot of the money up front? Were you hesitant to spend money? How did your journey kind of kickstart?
Yeah, for the music, it was very much try to save money. It was the fear of spending money. It was trying to be as resourceful as possible to create the best possible product I could. But in doing that, in pursuing that path, that took a lot of time. Mm. And, I don't regret it actually, because within that time, I learned a hell of a lot. I learned how to, perform better, or the recording process, make that far more efficient, the whole recording process, everything, just the way songs flowed. And so the time that, I could have fast-tracked a lot of things, thinking back, I could have fast-tracked getting more songs done and used a lot of money to do that. Mm. But maybe it wouldn't have been the best choice that early on. So again, within the creative sphere, there always is that pay-to-win option. Yeah, you can be a brand new singer-songwriter. You can have your first few songs and want to go into a recording studio and you pay the premium and say you go to the best place and you're there all day and you hire all these musicians to play your song with you live in the studio or whatever. And you've spent all this money because you wanted the top quality. You wanted to do it just how the big bands do it. But it's your first EP or it's the second single you've ever put out. Is that worth the investment? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. There's always that dilemma, right? I mean, I think we all hear the the experts say sometimes that it does take money to win and it takes money to advance. And really, it could be down to you making a personal decision whether you want to spend those 3 months learning how to properly record vocals, or you want to learn how to do cinematography, or you want to learn how to edit. But I think we also have to consider that there are people out there that spend so much of their time learning that skill, and they completely envelop themselves in this almost bubble where they everything they watch, everything they consume, everything they think about is, it could be editing, or it could be camera, or it could be sound, or it could be mastering. And there's so many times where I've thought, is this worth it for me to spend the 10 hours I need to figure out how to make this transition on Final Cut or on Premiere?
Right. Or do I just pay someone that's been studying it for years?
Yeah, and I think sometimes getting people on board that actually are good at what they do and they're geniuses in their own right, they could be way more beginner than what they consider an advanced or an expert, but that's still miles ahead of what I am, right?
Yeah.
When you're just starting out and you're a fresh slate. And in that sense, I would say that one of the best things to do would be to actually spend the $50 or $100 or whatever it costs to get someone's help on board. But it can always be difficult to make that first purchase.
When do you make that choice, I think, is the dilemma maybe, because we all get to a level where, okay, I'm just the songwriter. I'm not a mixing, mastering tech dude. I'm out on stage performing and, the showman, or I'm the guitarist, and the beat maker. I'm not the singer performer. So that guy is not going to get up on stage for hours and hours every day and learn how to do what the singer of that band does.
Yeah.
Is he? He's going to stick to his guns. So it's like if you're making a film, I guess you're the director and the writer, but do you have to be the editor as well? Do you really have to put in an extra few months to learn that craft and those programs? Or do you just pay to win in a sense, or find someone who can do that for you and save your time and put it towards better things? I know for the music, it was different in a sense, because I felt like there was an understanding. There's an understanding to have within that space. So when you are creating music and songs, you should be aware of the platforms, the people who are mixing or mastering your songs use, even if you don't want to get into that. I know some artists do it all, good on them. In certain genres of music, it's a lot easier than others, like in just like house or techno sort of thing. That's very doable, because they're making beats, they're not playing instruments, crafting a song from it's just
a whole bunch more. There's so many more elements.
It's more of a technical process, so it makes sense for artists of those genres to delve, I think, and multitask and become a jack of all trades sort of thing. But personally, I think it was very beneficial learning how that process functions to a degree. I spent a lot of time on doing that, though, to be honest. And I know you did too for a while, for a couple of years, and you tried to help me out learning the technical side of mixing and mastering for music. And it didn't really get us anywhere. At the end of the day, all those months we spent watching YouTube video after YouTube video, countless experts, and we still couldn't really remember a lot, or we'd copy what they'd shown us, and the song still didn't come out right.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I think you've got to go, okay, I've tried this for months. I've got an understanding of the context and an appreciation for the art and what else is needed to create that piece of that final product. But at the same time, it's time to step away now, because this isn't my thing. I'm the singer or whatever. I'm the director, not the editor, not the sound engineer. I understand it now. It's time to step away. It's time to pay someone really good, or find someone really good that is an expert.
Yeah.
And know when to make that choice.
100%.
What do you think about that within your journey?
Yeah, well, so you touched upon the fact that I helped you out with some of your mixing and mastering. So the background on that is a few years ago, Jazz was working on a song, and we were struggling to make it sound really, really amazing for Spotify and all these great, amazing platforms. And I thought that I could learn it myself. And that was when a whole world of difficulty opened up, where it was just an insanely complicated thing to me. And that's really when I learned that there are people that find this very, very easy, and they can understand it, and they can open Logic or open GarageBand or whatever software they use, and they can get to it straight away, figure it out in 10 minutes, and they'll have a song mastered within an hour. Whereas I spent weeks, if not months, trying to learn the skills, and I tried my best, but then it seemed like the further I got, the more complicated it got.
Your best just wasn't good enough, baby.
Yeah.
It's okay, neither was mine.
Yeah. So really what I found was that it was just such a complicated process that just wasn't the right path for me. So then at that point, I think we had launched your single on Spotify, and it just didn't really sound that good.
True. It was like 1/5 of the volume compared to all the other songs. Listen to a Robbie Williams song, it's 10 times louder. Listen to a song from Muse or Coldplay, it's 10 times louder. And mine sounds like it's coming out of a tinny little phone speaker a kilometre away in the distance. And we were going, what, why?
Exactly.
This makes no sense. We've done everything the YouTube gurus told us to do. And
Exactly.
the professional sound engineers, and it still didn't work.
And I think the main lesson I got from that is that there are people that really know their stuff, and they consume everything related to that area.
Yes, that's
each
the
and every
area.
day. You know, they'll probably subscribe to people that will give them new tips every day about how to master better or mix better.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing applies to film and any other creative area, really. And I think, you know, you either take ownership of a specific area and you go deep on that and you learn that really well and you become an expert in that. Or if you have gaps in your knowledge, sometimes it pays to actually pay someone. So a great example for this in my own journey is in the filmmaking process. When we first got into filmmaking and we did Infinitely More Important, we got a sound person on board. We got an editor on board. And all these people kind of came together. And that was my first real introduction into actually getting the right people on board instead
How
of
to assemble a team.
assembling a team instead of just trying to learn it all myself.
Yep.
And that was super evident when it came to sound editing and just making sure that the movie was really good in the end, you know, as best as it possibly could be. And we made some mistakes back then. We
did have a lot of technical issues
We had a lot of technical
but that
issues.
was not due to what we could control. So
yeah, but
it still came out.
That comes with every
phenomenally.
filmmaking process.
For a
you
first
learn.
film, for a first project ever.
Exactly. But those lessons and the fact that we made a product that wasn't up to scratch, even though we tried our best to get the best people on board, that allowed us to learn something that we could take to our future film projects.
True.
So for example, talking about, you know, time over money, speed versus time versus money, all of those elements, you want to be able to work quick. So with Devoured, I knew that I wanted to get an amazing sound person on board. So Jamie did an amazing job making sure that the sound was crisp and excellent. And the same can be said about the music person that I got on board. I'm not going to spend months and months trying to learn the keyboard and how to play the violin because I want to save a couple $100, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what that costs, but just for an example, you know, you could go on Fiverr and find people that are really good really
passionate,
talented.
and that's what they want to do.
Super passionate. That's what they want to do, and they'll charge, you know, anywhere. It doesn't really matter what the cost is, but sometimes you can get really decent people that are living overseas that can do things for pennies on a dollar, and it's wild to me that
and they're happy for the work as
they're
well,
happy for the work.
which is good. Like there are a lot of people that do these things for premium prices. You know, a lot of sort of Americans. I find usually they're Americans that have big tickets on themselves in Fiverr, whether it's in music or even just lyric videos. And like a lyric video I can make in one day that's phenomenal, and it's pretty easy and it's a fun, enjoyable process. Just FYI to other artist friends out there. As long as it's nothing too far out, I can make it pretty quickly. But there's people that charge, you know, $800, $900 for a lyric video. Whereas you might find, well, Americans anyway, you might find someone in a country that their currency, you know, our currency is worth a bit more,
Yeah.
and they're very eager, incredibly talented, hardworking people, but they've got that same gig up for $100. So really, are you going to waste 2-3 weeks of your time trying to find someone locally around the corner that can do it for free, or find some stock sounds royalty-free YouTube music you can use? Or are you going to hire someone and give them the work that really wants the work for a great price and spend the money, pay to win, but do it in a smart way?
Yeah, that's very true. It's a great point.
And give someone else an opportunity to.
Yeah, and
do what they
then
love.
it grows your team as well. Because once you find someone that is actually really good and trustworthy, and you work with them again.
Hell yeah.
For example, we made a very short film, One Night Stand, and it was only 4 minutes or something.
It was a last-minute film festival, spur of the moment. You had to make a film on your phone in 48 hours or something.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
And I needed someone to do music super quick. And I knew that the people that I had worked with in the past would probably take too long because of time zone differences and such, and it just wasn't feasible. So then what I did was I went on to Fiverr and I just looked up a bunch of people that could do music for film, and found one composer, and he was just amazing. Like, gave me a really good sample, and I think he charged like dollars. It was
Wow.
so cheap. It was
Wow.
so cheap, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And he kind of accepted to do like a really good deal for me because he kind of saw potential in my work, perhaps. And we ended up working together. The music was excellent, fit the movie perfect.
Yeah.
And then months later, I told him I was working on Devoured, another film, another project. And I was like, you know what? You've built a really good reputation with me, and I loved your work in that tiny 4-minute film. Let's work together on a 20-minute film. And he's been so excited, and I'll put his contact details
Great.
on the website.
Yeah.
And it's
or
just,
when this is up on YouTube as a video, we can
put it in the
put it in
description.
the description. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Somewhere. Click somewhere.
Yeah.
Down. Somewhere.
So yeah, so it's just, it goes to show sometimes that if you don't have the I don't want to say talent, because we all have some sort of talent for things.
Well, the
but
time and getting back to the time and money thing.
Time and money.
And I think the point of that and what we've both said there is, sometimes it is good to do the money over time. And just because you are doing money over time, pay to win in a sense, it's not necessarily always a bad thing. The choosing money over time can actually be really, really good as long as you are smart with it, and as long as it's not like a copious amount of money,
Yeah.
or it's a
Always spend
reasonable deal.
Exactly. Always
Like-
spend like what you can afford to spend, obviously.
Yeah. It's never like, oh, money over time, I don't have the money. Saying I don't have the money isn't really an excuse, because you can find people out there that are going to do what you need to do, what you need to get done to finish your creative project for a really good, really cheap price.
Sometimes even free if you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many people that want to collaborate and that want to they want to put their skills and talents out there.
Yeah.
You know, like even in the filmmaking space, it's so evident that people are so hungry,
Yeah.
and especially for those that are studying film and they're kind of early in their journey.
Yeah.
You never know who the next Quentin Tarantino is. You never know who's the next best editor. And you know, as that kind of culminates, you want to be able to put your feelers out there and see who wants to contribute to your project, because you just never know. Like, you know, you could be working on a psychological thriller, and that's actually the one thing that this editor has never worked on before, but they really want to get into it, and they'll do it for free, or they'll do it for almost no money. And never devalue an artist's work. Whenever I have the opportunity to pay people, even if it's the bare minimum that I can do, that's always what I'll opt in for. It's always important to respect people's time, and if they are coming on to your project, make sure to be nice to them. You know, give them some really tasty pizzas if that's the payment, but always be nice to people that are offering their time and their efforts.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to the whole time is money thing, because some people will happily do things for free. I know I will. I've acted in plenty of projects
we both
for
have.
no money. And
I've done some wild projects for free.
and going
some that I've
backwards
never even
sometimes.
seen years ago. Like
Yeah.
the amount of crazy near-death driving experience out here, there, and everywhere.
The things
for
you
these
do for
acting
passion.
pursuits. Yeah, the things we do, right? For free. The things we do for free sometimes. So it's very important to respect the people that do come on.
Yeah.
That you get on board, because they could have gone through a lot to help you finish that creative endeavor, to be there.
Exactly. And going back to the whole time versus money argument, we were talking about whether you should become a jack of all trades or becoming more specialized in order to save yourself usually the time, but then that often results in a higher cost spending.
Yeah.
But one thing that I saw recently was, it was a speech by Quentin Tarantino about getting together a really strong team. And he was saying that actually you don't need to be an expert in wardrobe, in makeup, in set design, in editing. You just need to know enough to be able to talk to the experts that are in that field. And
Yes.
I think that rings
Yeah.
so true. Because if you're talking to, in your example, a mixing and mastering person,
Yes.
you're going to want to know, their language,
I
some
know
of their
what to say to
keywords.
them now. Whereas a few years ago, I had no idea. I thought I just record this stuff and send it to someone, and they put it in the computer, and it'd all sound like what the songs sound like on the radio, because they put it in a special program on the computer and it fixes it all or something.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh yeah, this vocal, like try this plug-in, but maybe it's like less of this frequency and bring that frequency out of it. Or also, can that pan left to right, and can that sit in like the right the whole time? Can we float that above? Can we bring this piece of vocal forward in the mix? Can we sit this one on the left side? And
Wow.
there's a certain amount of respect you should pay to every facet of what you're doing, I think. Even if you can't be a master of it and you don't have the time to do it yourself and properly, you should at least try to get a comprehensive understanding of it, so that when it is time to pay someone good to do it for you,
Yeah.
you can speak their language to a degree, and that's going to make the money that you pay so much more valuable, because you're really getting what you want. You can really communicate with that person
Exactly.
you've hired effectively.
It's all
Whereas,
about communication.
yeah, if you didn't have that knowledge, maybe that money wouldn't go as far, and that person wouldn't be as useful to you, because you couldn't
That is so true.
direct them as
and,
well.
And exactly, you can direct them. And I think that's the key word.
Yeah.
If you do not know anything about editing, let's just say, how are you going to talk to the movements or the keyframing or them building in transitions or the coloration of the image? Like, how are you going to be able to talk to them about that? And I found that so true. And I found myself like a fish out of water when we were doing Infinitely More Important. And the cameraman would come up to me and be like, what lens should I use? And I'm like,
huh?
I have no idea.
Just press record. Isn't that an expensive camera? Isn't it a
Yeah,
good one? Yeah, it's a
just
good one.
make it look good.
I'd make it look good. Press record, mate. Make sure it's in focus.
Exactly. So then as a result, after we did that, I kind of was just like, okay, just move the camera closer, just do this and do that. And you kind of get away with it a little bit, and you make yourself seem smarter than you are sometimes. And yeah, it was a really interesting experience, because I really didn't know what I was doing. And it was my first film, and I was kind of just throwing crap at a wall, as they say. Anyways, and then flash forward about a year and maybe 2, and I was on YouTube trying to learn all about cameras, because I really wanted to know what to say to people when we were on set of Devoured. So I was watching videos about lenses and how to get like depth of field and
so boring.
all these terms.
So boring.
Well, to me and to you, yes, I found that
But
really not
it was
interesting.
necessary to a degree.
It was necessary. I spent the time, but I know that that's not my area.
You knew when to stop.
I knew when to
You knew
stop.
how much you needed,
Exactly.
and you knew when to stop.
I knew when to kind of give it a break, and to know that I knew enough, And that if I sunk any more hours into this, it would detract from me actually doing a director's job.
What you were meant to be doing for the
Exactly.
project. Yes.
So it was time over money, money over time, that same old discussion.
Yep.
And then from there, I knew their words, their language. I could communicate with the camera guys. And as a result, I was able to get a better outcome from them. One that actually made sense. You know, I could be like, okay, I'm looking for this frame, this shot. I've put together like a reference picture book.
Yeah.
And I knew that that was something that camera people really valued.
Yes.
You know, I would have never really
impressed.
known that.
Yeah.
So then as you just kind of create this...
Confidence
You create
within
confidence.
the team. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like 5 steps ahead of
Yeah.
what they were expecting in the first place.
Which
So
is
then
great.
you put the resources and kind of the money that you got in your pocket to making sure that you get people on board that are going to do that job as you wanted.
Yeah.
So in my case, we had amazing camera people that brought their own gear, and that's a huge cost saving, because I also was able to use my expertise in order to get the right people on board that knew how to operate their own gear. I didn't have to watch thousands of hours
Yes.
of YouTube trying to understand how a RED camera worked.
Yep.
But that person did, and they were going to be able to use that and know exactly how to translate my words into a great looking image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And there's so many examples just like that you can find in everyday life.
Yeah.
It's not only the creative industries.
It's everything. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, if I'm as a lawyer myself in my past life, when I was doing contract writing, if someone came to me with a criminal law problem, I wasn't going to be able to solve that. It's not my expertise.
Yeah.
And no amount of kind of reading and watching criminal law related content would be able to give them the exact answer that someone else could give that has spent their most of their adult life studying that, learning that, and being passionate about that. So going back to the creative field and taking those learnings, I wasn't going to try and become a cinematographer overnight and film devoured myself, because I didn't trust myself enough to do that.
And so there's a compromise.
There's always a compromise.
And so at the end of the day, I guess the opinion, I guess my personal opinion is that both are good, like time to a degree until you can use a little bit of money, or you can use the money to kind of be smart and resourceful with straight away and not waste as much time. But both are definitely needed, I believe, in order to create a brilliant product. Okay, and so I guess wrapping up time, money, what do you do? How do we judge it? What do we tell you guys at home to do, basically, as a new creator looking for guidance? Everything we just said, basically. So there isn't a right or wrong way. Again, for me, I think it's using both money and time. It's investing a certain amount of time to start with until you know your area and you have an appreciation and an understanding of that area. And then it's time to put the money in and get that done properly. And I believe both, a combination of both, is a must for any project or any, song, film, whatever you want, a piece of art, to truly get to that level that is exceptional and top quality. If you're just doing it all yourself and it's just time with no investment and no professionals in the industry helping you and making sure that it's up to standard, then it's probably not the best way to go. And if you're just throwing money at everything, like instance, the guy that did the Room film, that Tommy Wiseau, Lisa, you're killing me, stop, or what? I forget the catchphrases now. But that's a guy that just threw money at stuff. He's like, I want to be movie director, so famous. I'm the best American guy. I have a lot of good movie to go. Yeah. And he just throws money at people. And it came out, it was cult classic, but it was terrible. So yeah, it's knowing when to stop investing the time, when to put the money in, not just throwing money at things thinking it's going to work.
There has to be balance.
There has to be balance.
I think at the start, it's really useful to put in the time into discovering different areas. So if you're at the start of your journey as a creator, whether that's filmmaking, arts, whatever. It's important to learn about different areas and to spend the time in order to level up and to find an area that you can really focus on. And then the time will come when you'll need to collaborate with people. And that's when often it just pays to pay.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. There comes a time when you start to make a little bit of money, whether that's from your day job, your hustle, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can just get so much more done in a smaller amount of time if you outsourced it. And that is so true in so many areas.
Amazing. For you guys at home, we can't give you a definitive like one or the other. It's a mix, isn't it?
That's it. And that's really what the creative constitution is all about.
Yeah.
It's about arguing both sides, debating, having those discussions.
Discussing these points and letting the people at home think about that, and hopefully that information helps them.
That's right.
And they get that information a little bit earlier than we did in our creative journey. And you guys listening to this right now could fast track you. Like listening to this half an hour talk could save you a whole week of watching YouTube videos nonstop.
Exactly.
You know, it's telling it to you honestly.
That's right.
So,
and we're by no means experts, and that's why we created this podcast, to just have discussions and to openly talk about what we've learned along the way, to hopefully save you time and maybe some money too. And with that, thank you so much for listening to episode 3, and we'll see you in episode 4.